even more classified materials in Wilmington. Which four-letter word did you use?
But how did he get a gun that's illegal in the state of California?
We'll figure it out. And we're going to transition, but we're not removing something until we have something better. We won't do that.
Peter Doocy makes KJP laugh in the White House press briefing room. If you didn't see that clip yesterday, it's awesome. Gavin Newsom pressed on the fact that the gun used in the Monterey Park shooting was illegal in California, yet didn't stop the shooter. And also Joe Manchin and the WEF, women these days, and a whole lot more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts. Oh no, we didn't load in the actual video where we say Daily Caller Live starts right now. Here we go. That's fine. We'll do it right now. Man, off to a rough start. Daily Caller Live starts right now. 2, 1.
Here we go.
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. And today it is Wednesday, January 25th, the year of our Lord 2022. Got a lot of stuff going on today. More stuff has come out about the Monterey Park shooting in California. That is, I don't know. I hate to use lighthearted verbiage around something like this. But if we're talking about political points being made, there's a big one there. But I want to start off with this because I feel like this is, I don't know, just something not all that terrible, I guess. More documents came out yesterday. So if you weren't paying attention to the news yesterday, Mike Pence, former vice president, also had classified documents at his home in Indiana. I believe it's in Indiana. It might be in Washington, D.C. But anyways, Mike Pence also had classified documents. So apparently everybody has had classified documents in their home. And I'd actually like to take this moment here right now to say that I too also have classified documents in this very desk. Right in here, there's a drawer just chock full of classified marked documents. I'd like to report that to the FBI. Please don't raid my house. You can just call me. I'm home. Kind of like they did with Joe Biden. Last week when the feds searched Joe Biden's home in Delaware, everybody kept saying the feds, and the feds are this, and the federal government is, the DOJ is doing this. It was the FBI. The FBI also, I don't know if you call it a raid because they announced that they were coming, but the FBI searched Joe Biden's house. But for some reason, nobody said FBI. They kept saying the feds or the DOJ. Because everybody said the FBI for Trump, and they want to distance it from the Trump thing. But anyways, all of the documents being found all everywhere by everyone at any capacity of the government. And my argument still is that, hey, maybe we have too many classified documents. Maybe that's the problem. But nevertheless, Peter Doocy in the White House press briefing room asked KJP a funny question, because at this point, he can continue to ask, or really anybody can continue to ask, what were they thinking? What is the problem going on here? What is happening? As 4 different tranches of documents were found on all of Joe Biden's premises. He asked a funny question, so I'm going to play this question and see if you think it's as funny as I did. Even KJP laughed. Because it is funny, and everybody acknowledges that, yeah, this is a decently sized political problem that we don't know how to deal with on the Democrat side, especially how we handled Trump's whole raid of Mar-a-Lago. Watch this, and we will discuss on the other side. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already, would appreciate you clicking the little like button down here and the little share button, especially if you're watching on Facebook. Would appreciate you doing so. Kind of helps us keep the show rolling each and every morning. And by each and every morning, I mean most mornings. Yesterday we had a thing and it just didn't happen. So we'd really appreciate you clicking the little like button or the reaction button down there, as well as the little share button, and letting us know in the comment section what you think about this joke. I thought it was hilarious. Watch this.
Great. When you found out that the FBI had located even more classified materials in Wilmington, which 4-letter word did you use?
Oh my goodness, Peter.
President Biden is still intending to run for re-election in 2024, right?
I'll just repeat what the president said after the midterm election, which is he intends to run. I'm going to be very careful from here, as you know, because we are covered by the Hatch Act, and I'm not going to speak further to his process.
I haven't seen anybody from the press briefing room talk about the Hatch Act as much. If you're not familiar with the Hatch Act, it disallows government offices from speaking from a political campaign capacity. Everybody does it, by the way, but KJP uses the Hatch Act to avoid those conversations. Anyways, to get back to the point, Ryan says, I love that, man. That is a hilarious way to answer that question, or to ask that question. Because again, he could say, how could Joe Biden have done this sort of thing? But everybody already knows. He's already said that sort of stuff to the president. Everybody knows it's ridiculous. Why not highlight the ridiculousness by putting the Americans that are watching his program in the mind of the press briefing office, and have them understand what it's like there? Can you imagine KJP sitting at her desk, or maybe she's in a meeting and somebody comes in and says they found more documents? The first thing going through her mind is beep. And Peter Doocy just asked, which specific bleeped out word did you use? Because that clearly has to be what happened and is running through KJP's mind. I thought it was a hilarious question. But like I said, Mike Pence also got some documents found. A lawyer for Pence conducted a search in Pence's home in Indiana last week and found dozens of documents marked as classified. The source says the search was done proactively in the wake of the news that classified documents from before he was president were found in Joe Biden's home and old office in the Biden Penn Center, a Washington, D.C., a think tank. A Washington, D.C. Oh, gotcha. All of the different areas that they found Joe Biden documents. But here's what I thought was interesting. This is from ABC News reporting on this, and here's how they wrap up the article. Biden's attorneys have stressed that they quickly sought to return the classified records after they were found, beginning in November. I like how the mainstream big media always has a cop-out for the Democrats in power, saying, they tried fervently to give those documents back starting in November. Yet, interestingly enough, didn't tell anybody about it until now, until well after the midterms were done. Remember, they found the documents a day before the midterms, which, who knows, maybe it could have swayed some House seats. But there's that. So that's how they wrap up those. I want to get, KJP also said something interesting the day before yesterday, Monday, I believe, that I kind of thought was interesting just from a political standpoint, talking about the reason why I want to bring this up is KJP uses the Hatch Act often. So that, the Hatch Act says that I can't talk about, politics up here. This is strictly just news that I'm giving to you, the news media. That's what these are. I can't talk politics. And then continues on to talk politics. Watch this clip.
Now, House Republicans are using their narrow majority to force the American people to pay higher gas prices, just as big oil companies are amassing record profits. What's even more alarming is that this is not the only attempt by House Republicans' majority to raise costs on middle-class families. House Republicans are also pushing a tax increase on middle-class families, an inflation-worsening tax cut for the rich, and high prescription drug costs as well. These extreme policies would subject working families to immense financial pain and balloon our deficit, all just to benefit the wealthiest taxpayers and big corporations.
So having just said, hey, we can't talk politics up here, I'm going to read a prepared statement of an entirely one-sided political slant demonizing Republicans against the middle class of America. I just thought that was funny. Clearly, none of what she said is actually accurate and won't happen. There is stunt legislation going on in the House by Republicans. House Republicans have the majority, and a bunch of people are putting up what I call it stunt legislation, stuff that's like never going to get through the House even. It probably won't even get out of committee and get voted on in the House. But Republicans are going to, and this is just a thing that people do. This is the political game that we have in Washington, D.C. Whoever's in power, when they know that their bill won't actually gain traction and can't actually move through the House, let alone the Senate, they'll put up bills that are like, just, I'm pandering to my side on this particular bill. And then they'll do exactly that. They'll pander to their side, and then nothing will happen of it. But that's kind of what she's talking about. But again, a very, very political thing going on there. Phyllis says she's so full of BS. Yes, clearly. Let's see. Julie says she loves the Hatch Act. Yeah, seriously. I've been watching press secretaries for a very long time, and not a lot of them use that. Let's see. Anything else that I thought was? Oh, here's another one. Ryan says he believes the four-letter word that KJP used when she found out that were more Biden documents started with an F. I would take that bet. I would take that bet, not at even odds, but I would take that bet, and maybe it started with an S, possibly, or a D, possibly, even less likely, but possibly a D. But I'd take that bet, Ryan. Thanks for your input on the four-letter word that KJP used. And Charlie says she's so full of it. There's a bunch of comments here that kind of all say the same thing. So yeah, there's that. I want to move to this. I want to move to shoot. Look at the time. How do we get on these tangents, guys? Got a lot to get to. I really do want to get to the WEF thing from Joe Manchin. If you don't know about the WEF, the World Economic Forum is a bunch of globalists get together in Davos, Switzerland. I happened to go to Davos, Switzerland, and came away with some interesting thoughts here that I thought that were fun and we should talk about. But before we talk about that, Gavin Newsom, the guy who is surrounded and flanked by people with guns, talks about how bad guns are. Now, if you're not a fan of Governor Gavin Newsom, you might find this enjoyable. Again, it's difficult to make light of a very dark situation that happened in Monterey Park, where 11 people were killed in a shooting at a Chinese New Year, a Lunar New Year festival. Very, very sad, absolute tragedy. We talked about this on Monday. Gavin decided to go there and make a political statement by posting a photo of just himself walking down the street and looking contemplatively at a nondescript street in Monterey Park. But then he went on the news yesterday and started shaming gun owners, and then was asked a question. So this is him talking about his whole thing. I don't really need to point out the hypocrisy here, but then the next clip after this is where it gets like, okay, all right. I see what you're doing, Gavin. Check this out, and we will discuss on this side. Also, if you haven't, would really appreciate you clicking the like button and the little share button down here, or let us know in the comment section what you think about the governor of California and his definite run for president in 2024. Check it out.
It's always a weapon of mass destruction, isn't it? I mean, I get it. We can talk about the anomalous nature of this, and it certainly is. But what is also anomalous is the fact that there's a pattern here in the United States of America of these mass shootings that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, these free will. And maybe that should be the fundamental focus. Large capacity clips, just insane. There's no justification, period, full stop. It's insane. These people are perpetuating lunacy and should be ashamed of themselves.
But when you said the Second Amendment is a suicide pact,
feels like it increasingly.
But there's many people in this country that support the Second Amendment
I support
and are lawful gun owners.
Yeah.
This is where it gets off the rails, and King Gavin decides he's going to try and save his pandering. Check it out.
Great respect. I have no ideological opposition to someone reasonably and responsibly owning firearms, getting background checks and being trained, and making sure they're locked so their kid doesn't accidentally shoot themselves or a loved one. Absolutely not. Never suggested that. That's what they immediately do. Who wants to take away your guns? I just want to take away weapons of war that are illegal on the streets of California and should be illegal across the United States. I mean, just literally use common sense.
Okay, so that was Gavin going on his little tirade. Why aren't we using common sense? Here is the massive irony. Somebody asked a question of Gavin, and he answered it poorly. But California, like we've mentioned many times before, has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And the gun used in the Monterey Park tragic mass shooting, I will keep saying that because, yes, it is a tragedy, and it's difficult to, again, I don't want to say make light of that, but it's a terrible thing. Terrible thing happened there. But also the gun used by the shooter was illegal in the state of California. So in effect, the gun laws that we have here didn't help much. Watch this clip, and when Gavin gets asked about that, he says your typical politician answer and doesn't happen.
But how did he get a gun that's illegal in the state of
Exactly.
California?
We'll figure it out. That's going to happen.
Okay, so
It's always
sorry, there we're hold on. I want to play that one more time.
But how did he get a gun that's illegal in the state of
exactly.
California?
We'll figure it out. That's going to happen.
Okay, so asked by I forget who this is, CBS News. Well, how did he get a gun? They're illegal here. And Gavin says, yeah, we're going to figure that. We're going to get to the bottom of that. While at the same time calling for national gun laws that probably won't help much either. I feel like I don't want to go down the gun rabbit hole again. Maybe we will later on in the week, maybe on a slower news day. We can talk about some of the parallels between the United States and other countries that have a lot of guns and the differences in our cultures. Maybe we can talk about that because that's, I think, a huge component in the gun argument that never gets talked about because the Democrats immediately jump to gun control and Republicans then have to defend it. But we're missing a large portion of the conversation that nobody ever talks about. But Gavin Newsom there, saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Okay, dude, great. Karen says this, murder is illegal. Correct. And then says, but it hasn't stopped murder from happening. Yeah, that's, there's a problem there with Gavin's logic. Kathy says the dude looks like a classic movie villain. That's accurate. Let me see if I can. He used to be a tall, handsome guy, and now he's classic movie villain is a good way to describe him. Marcel says gruesome Newsom, not my words, but can't disagree with you there. And then also photo op much Gavin ? Yeah. All right, I want to move to this because I think this is important, and it's fascinating in the world of the World Economic Forum. So, if you don't know what the World Economic Forum is, it is a big powwow with a lot of the big global elites. It's supposed to, as this event that bridges the gap between government and private businesses. What it has become is the government working with the private businesses to control the masses and control the population. Now, it's become that over the last couple years. In its inception, I don't know that it was intended to consolidate power. It very well could have been assembled with good intentions, but the big-time global elites have since taken it over, and especially over the last couple of years, it has come to prominence at the World Economic Forum. Is this big cabal of power who are trying to wield that power over the entire global population. Now, a lot of times people look at the WEF and say anybody who goes to the WEF is a globalist trying to, like I said, consolidate power. And in a lot of ways, that's true. Justin Trudeau went there and is part of he didn't go this year, but he is a part of the Young Leaders Movement group that the WEF touts and says, well, these are our young new leaders who will help usher in a globalist agenda and reset the economies of the world to do exactly what we want. Now, that all of that stuff is true and valid and relevant. But what I learned there, I was in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum, and what I learned is that in most cases, people going to the World Economic Forum, global leaders going to the World Economic Forum is concerning, to say the least. But not in all cases. In 2019, I believe Donald Trump went and gave a speech to the World Economic Forum that basically said, screw China, America first, that's how we're doing it. And honestly, I love that. People are like, why did Donald Trump go to the World Economic Forum? To tell them to their faces to pound sand. And I was all for that. So what I'm trying to say is just going to the World Economic Forum for American politicians is not exactly the worst thing, even though there's a lot of people, especially in the conservative side, say, wow, Joe Manchin went to the World Economic Forum, Kristen Sinema went to the World Economic Forum, Brian Kemp, the Republican governor of Georgia, went to the World Economic Forum. I can't believe that they would even show up there. Well, I'm about to give you an example of what I think is a pretty good reason to go to the World Economic Forum from Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Again, you can make the argument or make the claim that I can't believe they would go to that sort of thing. But if they go to this sort of thing and sit on a panel there and say the things like this, like what Joe Manchin said, what I'm about to show you, I'm actually fine with it. I'm fine with American politicians going so long as they tell all the globalists to pound sand. I'm going to stop jabbering about it. I feel like that's kind of set up the context of this. And I want to get to what Joe Manchin actually said when he was sitting on a panel. These are some long-ish clips, but I want to play them all because I think they're fascinating. This is Joe Manchin sitting on a panel talking about global warming and sustainability and climate and all that sort of stuff, and not having it from the person asking the questions and also from the audience. They're asking, why isn't America kneecapping their economy to save the climate? I actually really liked his answer. Check this out.
Senator Manchin, when you hear that kind of rhetoric, do you believe that that is helpful to the conversation?
Well, it's not factual. It's not basically realistic to what's going on in the world right now. Let me just say that there's been a lot of consternation and concerns about the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, thinking that it's going to harm the EU. There is no intent whatsoever to harm any of our allies and basically to be able to give them the assurance that we're always going to be there. Well, we've been blessed in the United States. We have the resources. We have oil. We have natural gas. We have the ability from technology to do everything we can to promote the new technologies of the future. What we're not going to do in the United States is get rid of something until we have something that will do exactly what we're getting rid of and do it as well, if not better. We will not do that. We will not leave ourselves in a vacant position. We think our friends in the EU basically are challenged right now, and we weren't even able to help you. The first thing our administration said was, well, let's go out and see if we can get Iran. We'll lift the sanctions. I said, the most prolific terrorist in the world, you're going to give them money to do more havoc and wreak havoc around the world? Absolutely not, with my vote.
So I love that. It kind of gets on the little rails about helping the EU and all that sort of stuff. And I get how that can be kind of confusing. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where we stopped here. Did I not do that correctly? But it was great. He basically said, look, all of you want us to cut our emissions immediately. He said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to just decide fossil fuel is dead in the water before we have another alternative. And look, I've said this many times on this show. I'm all for somebody find a cost-effective, more sustainable energy source, and we should use it. And it should be fronted by the private industry without the backing of government subsidies. If somebody's like, hey, like this up in the Bay Area, if this nuclear fission thing ends up being promising, if you don't know about this, basically there's a possible perpetual motion / boiling laser thing that can produce unlimited power. If that actually works, let's do it. And then let's wean ourselves off of all of the whatever. It doesn't matter to me. As long as the private sector pushes that stuff forward and it's not subsidized by the government to cancel out fossil fuels. That's basically what he's saying here. People ask you, why isn't the United States doing more? He's saying, pound sand, dude. Like your goals are ridiculous if you just want us to cut our energy output and usage for the sake of cutting it without having any backup plan. That's stupid. I love that he said that. And then, I don't know if you saw at the very end there, he went on to hit the Biden administration. He said something along the lines of, and then our administration went to Iran because we were trying to cut emissions in our own country, and instead we just bought oil from terrorists. That's stupid, and it didn't get my vote. Yeah! I don't care that Joe Manchin is a Democrat that went to the World Economic Forum. As long as he goes to say exactly that, I'm all for it. Pound sand, globalists. There's more of this. Continue to watch this. And then he gets, well, there's more. It's a little bit longer. But again, I think this stuff is fascinating, and I'm all about it. If you haven't already, click the little like button. Would appreciate you. But down here, the little like button and the little share button. Would really appreciate you doing that. Anyways, more of Joe Manchin.
West Virginia before, they have said, well, you got to have carbon pricing. You got to have a carbon tax.
Oh.
And I said, are you people crazy? You think I'm going to add to inflation by adding more cost? What we did was do it from incentives with investments. And now we're drawing attention from the whole world to come to the United States to invest. We're trying to reduce the amount of risk you're going to have and trying to mature these new technologies. So if you really want a clean environment, a cleaner environment, and geopolitical, basically some calming of geopolitical unrest that we have, you better be able to do it quicker, faster, and better than any place in the world, and then share it with your friends. That's what we're going to do.
Again, I'm all for it. He's talking about a carbon tax. The entire global elite things are, well, these countries should institute a carbon tax on all of their companies, and therefore, when the companies produce CO2 emissions, they should get charged for it to help disincentivize them for using fossil fuels. And Joe Manchin's like, so you're trying to increase costs when costs are already being increased by huge inflationary pressures? Absolutely freaking not. Yeah, Joe. I'm all about that. Listen, that was the most fascinating part. The moderator at the panel reminds people. Now, she doesn't do this for anybody else on the stupid panel, but reminds all of these people that, well, just so you know, Joe Manchin got a ton of money from the coal and gas industry. And Joe Manchin handles it fantastically. Check it out. Watch this.
Senator Manchin, I just want to mention for our audience who may be unaware, I believe that the oil and gas community in the United States contributed some $180,000 to your last campaign. Which isn't,
I
by the
hope
way,
they did
illegal
because
in
I
the
should
United
support
States.
them. I'm hoping they're supporting me.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that because the bottom line is, you tell me. I mean, look right now, Putin weaponized energy. We didn't do a thing. We sat back. We said, what are we going to do? Our friends and all of our allies were hurting, and we couldn't come to your rescue quick enough. We're ramping up now, and we're going to do it better and quicker, and we're proud of that, and we're going to transition, but we're not removing something until we have something better. We won't do that.
Freaking, and then he throws it back on them. Bottom line here is, people talk about Democrat politicians going to the World Economic Forum, which is usually, again, is a bad thing. But when you go to the World Economic Forum and in a luncheon, in a non-broadcast luncheon, Joe Manchin got a microphone at the WEF and was talking about how American energy independence. If politicians, including Democrat politicians, are going to go to these sorts of globalist events and tell them all to pound sand, I'm all for that. Can we get more of that? Can we have more of our politicians going to these sorts of events and telling them all to pound sand? Can we get some of our conservative business leaders to the World Economic Forum next year and get on stage in speaking slots and tell the globalists to pound sand? I'm all about that sort of thing. But yeah, anyways, just kind of a fascinating thing going on there at the World Economic Forum. I think I don't really have time to explain a ton of the different thoughts that I've got on the World Economic Forum in general. Bottom line, I think key takeaways, and maybe we'll do a big long episode on just the World Economic Forum. But key takeaways here: the World Economic Forum is bad, but it is losing power, and people like Joe Manchin and a bunch of other people too are willing to go there and say, "Hey, America first. Sorry, guys. If you want our help in the future, we are not going to do all the things that you want to do." And kneecap us as the global superpower. So I'm all about that. Let me see some of the comments here. Sandra says WEF is our number one enemy. I agree. Is our one of our enemies. Number one enemies. And then Julie says, "Did you ski in Switzerland?" I did not. Did not get a chance to go skiing. There's a lot of stuff there going on, and we were kind of running up and down the streets, gathering some information. And let's see. Okay, so here's Mark, which kind of a longer comment, but I like it. Jobob, do you think the WEF gave any credit to what Joe Manchin was saying, even though everything he said was making perfect sense? Probably not. Probably the leaders at the World Economic Forum did not. But remember, they only have as much power and influence as we, the overall population, give them. And if we, the overall population, recognize that globalists are going to these sorts of things, and then we start to unelect these globalists, the mindset of the world leaders and the powerful will eventually change. So, did Joe Manchin change anybody at the World Economic Forum's mind? I don't think so, but he did give an opportunity for the rest of the world to see, hey, America's not going to be beholden to the whims of your global super elitists who fly in on their private jets to help stop climate change. Sadie says something that I agree with. This is probably culminates my entire thoughts on the World Economic Forum. We don't need the government to stop. We need the government to stop all the micromanagement. Just leave us alone. Correct. I got to stop there. We're running up against a deadline, and I also got to go on. If you have the Victory Outreach channel, I believe I'm going to be on there in about 15 minutes. So we got to jump off this thing. Appreciate all of you sticking around, tuning in. Those of you who do it each and every morning, really, really appreciate you doing that. There's some hilarious stuff that we will get to tomorrow. Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Didn't get as heated as I did on Monday, but as of right now, we will be right back here, same time, same place tomorrow, barring any craziness. So we will see you then. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. The Instagram is going nuts nowadays, which I really, really appreciate. Also, we have tour dates. Shoot. We have a lot of tour dates. I didn't prepare for this at all. It just popped in my head. March, there's like 9 different stops. We're going to be in Santa Barbara, then San Diego, then Lexington, Kentucky, then, Columbus, Ohio, then Chicago, then New Jersey, Louisiana, UC Davis. There's a lot of stuff going on. I will keep everybody informed of that if you want to stop at one of our events and say hi. A lot of them, there's some stand-up comedy gigs in there. There's events with TPUSA's Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens, which are super exciting. But I'll give everybody more information as that comes out. But they announced it yesterday, so I'll be keeping you all posted about that. But if you haven't already, give me a follow on any of the social media platforms, and you'll be able to find wherever I am on those platforms. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Keep it real. God bless America.